Good evening. Welcome to the Hingham Zoning Board of Appeals. Today is the 13th of February, the day before Valentine's Day. Time is 6:34. First item on our agenda is Riverstone LLC, application for a comprehensive permit under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40B, to construct a 36-unit condominium development, including 9 affordable units on approximately 6.7 acres of land located off Ward Street, map 124, lots 70 to 75 and 26, in Residence District B. The revised site layout plan dated December 20th, 2017 depicts 32 units. This hearing is continued from our hearing on February 6, 2018. These proceedings are being recorded both by the zoning administrator and by HCAM. What do we have for the applicant this evening?
We do. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Board. My name is Warren Baker. I represent the applicant. And with me is Brian Murphy, the principal of Riverstone LLC, also Brad McKenzie, the engineer from McKenzie Engineering, and also with us is Ron Mueller, the traffic consultant from Ron Mueller and Associates.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Mueller, M-U-L-L-E-R.
So I'd like to start off the meeting by having the zoning administrator review items that have been added to the record and received by the zoning board since our last meeting.
So I'm going to run through a list organized by source and chronological order. So materials.
1 second. Can people hear Emily when she's speaking?
Sorry. Any better? A little bit? So the first grouping of materials we received from representatives of the applicant. We received first correspondence from Attorney Baker dated February 8th, which responded to the board's request for peer review funds to engage a wetland scientist. The correspondence was forwarded by email, and within the body of the email, Attorney Baker indicated that the applicant would not be able to meet its commitment to file a complete and specific waiver list by last Friday, February 9th. On February 8th, 2018, we received a check from the applicant to support peer review funds as requested. We then received an email response, again from Attorney Baker, dated February 12, 2018, responding to an inquiry from the zoning administrator, confirming that the applicant did not object to the qualifications of the wetland scientist selected on behalf of the board to complete the peer review. And finally, we received another letter from Attorney Baker dated February 12th, responding to questions raised by abutters at the February 6th, 2018 hearing about access rights in the right-of-way to Autumn Circle. Materials submitted by representatives of either the board or the town include correspondence from Chris Napoli, Fire Marshal, dated February 8th, 2018, comments from Sergeant David Hort from the Hingham Police Traffic Safety Division, dated February 9th, 2018, and including results of a traffic count study they conducted on Ward Street at the Viking Lane intersection, and a message from Jeffrey Dirk of Vanessa and Associates dated February 11th, 2018, including preliminary review comments on the data provided by the police department. From the public, including abutters to the development, we received a number of comment letters. Some of these were submitted, I think, at the last hearing, so excuse any redundancies in the list, but we received from Joyce Bethany of 23 Autumn Circle comments dated February 6th, 2018, as well as an email message and photographs dated February 7th, 2018, from Bob and Ann Mullen of 18 Autumn Circle. We received comments on February 6th, 2018. Lila Johnson for Heather Lane submitted comments on February 6th, 2018. Ellie Hickey, 5 Autumn Circle, submitted comments on February 7th, 2018. Jean and Jean Severio, 6 Autumn Circle, provided comments dated February 10th, 2018. Diana Betts, 42 Arnold Road, submitted comments February 12th, 2018. Joyce Bethany again provided comments. She again resides at 23 Autumn Circle on February 13th, 2018. Ed Johnson provided comments. He resides at 108 Ward Street. Comments are dated February 13th, 2018. We then, just prior to the hearing, received additional comments, so these aren't yet in the list, but I see a letter from Robert and Ann Mullen, 18 Autumn Circle. It's dated February 5th, so I apologize if this is redundant again, but received date stamped February 13th, just handed to us tonight. Comments again from Joyce Bethany, dated February 12th, received today. She resides at 23 Autumn Circle. And then architectural review comments from Yvette Youssef, received today, February 13th, 2018. And that is what we've received since last week.
Thank you very much. I want to turn first to the wetlands peer review. I know that a wetland scientist has been selected and the funds were received. And I know we received a letter from Attorney Baker. I'm just a little confused whether the applicant is objecting to our peer review of the wetlands line, or if there's specific concern that there'll be other topics, but just on this wetlands issue.
I had no problem with the board deciding to do an independent investigation of the line, and however, I did have an objection to the fee, and so therefore we paid the fee. However, we paid it with objection, feeling that it was not authorized by the regs or by 40B as an independent step.
Can you help me to understand why? Because my understanding is that 40B authorizes peer review. In fact, the wetlands peer review was one of the items that the HCD has suggested be done by boards when there are wetlands issues. So what's the specific reason why there'd be objection to a peer review of the wetlands?
Well, I believe that the request came through the Conservation Commission, and it was essentially a precursor for the INRAD or an NOI. And the appeal of the HOC has been consistent in conditioning of that. At this point in time, in the stage of it, has not been supported by them, and has rejected the board to say, yes, we need that done. So the way that I look at it was that very issue. I think it's sufficient at this stage that we present that we are in general compliance with it. And I think that our plan that was done by our wetland specialist in December, I think, of 2015, and represented on the plan, represents the current condition. Regardless, we submitted the fee, and it's going to happen. And the only request that we made is that in order to make sure it's not adversarial, that our wetlands expert be there at the time that the hired wetlands expert is reviewing that, and we might be able to get the ESR.
So just to be clear, this board sits as the Conservation Commission when it deals with the local regulations. And the HAC has directed zoning boards when they are acting as the Conservation Commission, in fact, to do these peer reviews. So I don't agree with the suggestion that this is coming from someone other than the zoning board. And in fact, in the last meeting, I know Susan Murphy referenced the Mass Housing Partnership Chapter 40B Handbook for Zoning Boards of Appeals, which is done in cooperation with GACD, and they specifically list in that handbook that we should be engaging a wetland scientist to do these sorts of reviews. So I think we're acting consistent with DHCD guidelines, and we're fully supported by HAC precedent. So I'm glad we're proceeding, and we've got the funds so that we can proceed. One of the items that I know we wanted to cover this evening was traffic. That's coming from the jack. Sounds like a phone from the Matrix when you hear it. or it disappears. You have to be careful.
Take a red
I'd like to turn to traffic and give the applicant an opportunity to present their traffic analysis. I know that's been deferred. We have not yet seen it, so it would be helpful when we hit on traffic peer review person here as well.
Then I'd like to introduce Ron Goeldner for
Thank you.
Good evening. John?
Yep.
For the record, my name is Ron Goeldner, principal from Miller & Associates, and the author of the original traffic study, as well as additional information that I submitted in response to Manhattan Associates' request to the review consultant.
Just so we're clear, what's the date of the original study that you're referring to?
The original study is dated April 11, 2016. Essentially, BAI, Manhattan Associates, had a number of comments on traffic study, most notably and importantly the fact that since preparation of the original study, the project has changed. Now, there's access proposed through Bonn Circle, which obviously will change the distribution of the traffic. And the project is going to reduce from 36 units to 32 units. So I've updated the study. I submitted a response letter that has collected additional traffic counts from the Olsen Circle and High Street intersection as requested by CAI. Redistributed the site traffic based on the current development plan and consistent with accepted distribution. Updated the accident information at all the study intersections, although it has sent some additional information requested in the 36th letter, which I will supply to the board. And analyze the impacts of that project. Basically, what it shows is very similar to previously, 36 units of access by biking lane only, or 32 units of access by biking lane and Olsen Circle. The project still has very little impact on the study intersections.
1 second.
We're all saying we cannot hear the show.
Speak into the microphone.
We don't know what he's saying.
We
can't hear you.
It's like an echo. I can definitely hear the speaker in the back of the room. So I
This is
don't
very
know.
important that we can't
Right.
understand it.
So is there anything that HCAM can do to adjust the microphone here?
The closer I stand to the microphone, the more of an echo it is.
Exactly. I agree with that. Please continue.
Okay.
That's the speaker. It's a speaker problem.
Oh.
So like I said, reanalyzing the impacts of the project basically shows that the project still has very little impact, in fact less impact than before, because the number of units has been reduced, and we now have less traffic going through the High Street and Ward Street intersection due to the connection with Olsen Circle. We expect about 15% of the traffic on High Street coming from the east. That traffic with the Olsen Circle connection now, we expect to travel through the Olsen Circle neighborhood. And that amounts to roughly 3 vehicle trips during the peak hours. So the increase in traffic as a result of this project through the Olsen Circle neighborhood is about 3 trips during peak times. They also asked us to investigate the possibility of cut-through traffic by making this connection now. Essentially, traffic that's coming from High Street from the east and destined to Ward Street south, we don't expect to cut through the neighborhood because it actually is shorter to continue on High Street, make a one left turn onto Ward Street, and proceed on their destination. Going the other way, it's possible that there could be cut-through traffic.
So going up Ward Street, you mean?
Going up Ward Street to north, and then turning right onto High Street, you could turn right onto biking lane and go through the neighborhood that way. And the only reason why I say that it's possible that there might be some cut-through traffic as a result of that is because of the delays experienced by traffic during peak hours on Ward Street approaching High Street. In that case, it is a free right turn, you have a channelized right turn, but the traffic backs up past that channelized right turn, which we calculated can happen at times. That may induce some traffic through. So what I've recommended be done is to add speed tables through the project to discourage cut-through traffic. A perfect location would be where site plans on Viking Lane, that crosswalk be made a raised crosswalk. That will do two things. One, it will slow down speeds and discourage through traffic, but it will also increase pedestrian safety by highlighting the fact that there is a raised crosswalk and slowing speeds down. Another good location would be just prior to the, essentially in that connecting piece between Viking Lane and Autumn Circle, just before the Autumn Circle, the existing cul-de-sac, would be another good location for a speed hump. So I believe that would help to cut down on that potential of cut-through traffic. But even if there is cut-through traffic, I would expect it to be very minimal. Again, the distance is shorter if you stay on Ward Street and turn onto High Street, and you only have one turn to make as opposed to 3 turns. BAI did recommend a couple of things. One is to conduct a road safety audit at the High Street and Ward Street intersection because of the number of accidents that have occurred there, and the applicant has agreed to provide that report, or to do that report as a condition for approval. And the other was to implement whatever short-term improvements come out of that report. Now that's something that the applicant has said he can't commit to at this point because we just don't know what sort of improvements might be recommended as a result of that. So I believe that you'll hear from Shepard, I'm sure, about some possible solutions that he's come up with to address that issue. That is all I have. If you have any questions, sir, you have any questions?
No, I think I'd like to hear from Jeff.
Well, I have a question. You talked about the number of units, 36 to 32, but the original application said it was going to be 80 bedrooms. Now it's 90. So did you take that into account? I mean, it might not make much of a difference, but I just wondering.
The trip generation manual that we use is based on the number of units, not on the number of bedrooms.
Thank you.
Did you do an assessment of the potential safety impacts of the cut-throughs?
Well, like I said, my recommendation, I believe, will help to eliminate any potential cut-through traffic, so I don't believe that that will be the case. And the 3 additional cars of this project will add to Autumn Circle because of the traffic that's in the High Street East is really an insignificant volume of traffic that wouldn't have any safety. Obviously, safety is the biggest concern that we always have the traffic and just to make sure this is really in line with this. But no, I mean, we want to make sure, obviously, that any project doesn't have any safety impacts on existing streets. But it's my belief that 3 additional cars are not going to cause a safety impact on any street.
Have you made any assumptions about the existence of sidewalks or not when you looked at the cut-through traffic and the impact on safety?
Well, there are no sidewalks currently in Autumn Circle, but the street is 24 feet in width, and according to the Mass DOT Project Development Design Guide, they recommend, and a number of other studies actually that I've researched, it recommends a minimum of 18 feet for two-way local road traffic, and if you have pedestrians sharing the road, they recommend an additional 4 feet. Autumn Circle is about 24 feet wide, so it exceeds that standard.
Thank you. Mr. Berg.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the board. As mentioned, my name is Jeffrey Dirk. I'm principal of Vanessa Associates, and we are the town's traffic consultant for this project.
Jeff, hold on. Can folks hear him any better?
Yep.
So we did conduct 2 reviews of the project. You should have 2 letters in your packet. The first one is dated January 4th, and then there's a follow-up letter dated February 6th. As you heard from the applicant's traffic engineer, our first review really focused on the initial traffic study that was done a couple of years ago. That study reflected a slightly larger development, but I think most significantly it did not include the connection of the circle. So as you looked at our original review comments, a lot of the comments had to do with the fact that the study needed to be updated to reflect this connection. In fact, frankly, as we looked at the site, we weren't quite sure and didn't find any information as to why that connection was actually put in place. So, we had asked the applicant to go through, redo their analysis to reflect that connection. Specifically, in looking at the connection, and this is also a theme in our comments and our follow-up review, is that this connection not only affects the circulation, the distribution of traffic we had, that the applicant's engineer mentioned, but it also raises issues relative to safety. And so as you look at, and the chair's comments echo our concerns as well relative to the bottom circle, and there are some outstanding issues we asked the applicant to look at, specifically relating to safety. I'll get to those comments in a minute. So the applicant conducted the original traffic study. Our first part of our review is to make sure that it complies with industry standards and state standards for the preparation of traffic impact analysis study or a transportation impact assessment. In general, overall, the study did comply with those standards. We'd asked the applicant to go back and incorporate the Autumn Circle roadway in their traffic study, as well as the High Street Autumn Circle intersection, and then reassess how that connection would affect both traffic operations and safety. The applicant's engineer did redo that analysis and submitted it to us. That is the subject of our latest review, which is dated February 6th. Focusing on that review, there are some outstanding items that we've asked the applicant to submit to us so that we can review on their behalf. Those items deal with safety, so we've asked the applicant to provide additional motor vehicle crash information for the set of intersections. The data that was provided in the original traffic study is a couple of years removed from the more recent data that's available. We've also asked them to submit information from the Hingham Police Department as well as those locations. Now, the High Street, Ward Street, French Street intersection, that location, the applicant did provide additional motor vehicle crash data for us. That location has a crash rate that's 2 times the state average, so it's double the number of crashes that would be expected at a similar intersection based on the volume of traffic that's going through there. So the applicant did provide some additional information to us so that we can understand what the potential causes of the crashes are at that location. They provided the motor vehicle collision diagram that's also informative so that we can look at potential improvements at those locations. As traffic engineers, we never want to have a project that's going to add traffic to an intersection that has a higher than average crash rate. It doesn't matter if it's existing. If it's a demonstrating safety deficiency, that deficiency needs to be addressed before we add traffic to the location. The applicant has agreed, as was mentioned, to conduct what's known as a road safety audit. That road safety audit is a mechanism that gets all the public safety officials together to look at that intersection and come up with ideas for what solutions or what improvements could be done to improve the safety at that location. So the applicant has agreed to conduct that road safety audit. We had also suggested that before the project or any project adds more traffic to the intersection, you have to address what the causes of the crashes are. So we don't want to have a project that adds traffic to an intersection that's already been demonstrated as being deficient relative to safety. So the follow-up to just the road safety audit is something needs to be done there. We do understand that the applicant is saying they can't commit to funding improvements if they don't know what the cost of those improvements are. So what we suggested in our February 6th letter is that there's 2 things the applicant could do. The first is conduct the road safety audit now prior to the closing of the public hearing process for this project. That way we would all understand what those improvements may be. The applicant and the applicant's engineer can put some costs of those improvements, and then they could agree or at least have a dialogue with you on the funding of those improvements. If the applicant's not willing to conduct the road safety audit now, then the board would need to engage with the applicant on establishing funds for improvements. And again, we as your engineer also can't recommend to approve a project that adds traffic to an intersection that's unsafe. And the applicant's engineer is also indicated again higher than average crash rate there. So that needs to be addressed. So we provided to you 2 mechanisms for the applicant to consider as a path forward to addressing the safety concerns of that intersection. Now, focusing on the Viking Lane intersection with Ward Street, the key area there that we're looking at is capacity. The applicant's engineer has mentioned so looking at motorist delays and vehicle queuing at that location, but also importantly, lines of sight. A piece of information that was provided, I believe, just over the weekend or on Saturday, I believe, was some additional motor vehicle speed data that was provided by the police department. Sight lines at intersections are dependent on the speed of traffic that's approaching the intersection. The applicant's engineer conducted some speed studies approaching Viking Lane on Ward Street. Those speed studies indicated that the predominant or prevailing travel speed was somewhere close to 34, 35 miles an hour. The recent data provided by the police department indicated that that prevailing travel speed actually may be closer to 40 miles an hour. Either way, what we've assessed in terms of sightlines is that the sightlines at that intersection are appropriate for a speed in excess of 40 miles an hour, so whether you use the applicant's data or the police department data, appropriate sightlines are provided. The caveat to that is that we've requested the applicant show the sightlines on the site plan. So now, if we have a speed of 40 miles an hour, we know what the required sightline is, so they can actually plot on the site plan the site triangle. So from the point of a motorist exiting Viking Lane and they're looking towards street, that defines a triangle. Basically, the sightline is required, measured back to where the vehicle will be in Viking Lane. You can have a site triangle established. So we stated that the applicant has to show the site triangles on the site plan so we can see are those sight lines or the site triangles contained entirely within the project site or within the public right-of-way. So we need to understand if the sight line actually crosses private property. If it does, then we'll need to have discussion with the applicant and provide some recommendations to the board as to maintain sight lines within the site triangle area if it crosses private property, because in that case, it's not under the applicant's control. And so we need to see, see if it does cross private property. If it is, we'll need to provide some recommendations to you, because those areas, again, are outside of the applicant's control, so we'll need to see that. So relative to the sight lines, our conclusion is the intersection meets the sight lines, but we need to see how those sight lines are met as to whether it crosses private property. We asked the applicant to also provide sight lines at the Autumn Circle High Street intersection, which they've done, and they've demonstrated that the sight lines at that location are appropriate for an approach speed of about 40 or in excess of 40 miles an hour along High Street. The speed data for that location is provided by the police department, and the applicant has incorporated that into the traffic study. So in essence, from the standpoint of just the traffic study, we certified that the project, the study itself is compliant with industry standards in terms of the means and methods. There is some follow-up information relative to the motor vehicle crash data that we need to see from the applicant. And then there's the sight lines that need to be there validated for the Viking Lane intersection. Then our next set of comments really deal with site plans, and there's a number of outstanding items on the site plans that need to be addressed. Those items are required for us to be able to demonstrate or be able to make a recommendation to you as relative to the safety of the access and circulation within the project site. So the traffic study is really looking at impacts external to the project site, the site plan and our review for the site-related circulation is now internal to the project site, and then its connection out to Olsen Lane. So focusing on the site plan itself, the first thing that we have comments on is relative to the roadway width. We've cited some standards that will allow potentially for a road width less than 24 feet. We've cited standards that say that the standard roadway width, and I think the town standard roadway width would be 24 feet with sidewalks on just one side of the roadway itself. Just for reference, the fire code requires a minimum roadway width of 20 feet. So in no instance could you have a roadway that has a width less than 20 feet that serves a residential project or that provides access to a residential dwelling. So 24 feet is the standard that we try to achieve. That's the town standard. The fire code establishes a minimum width of 20 feet. The applicant is proposing 20 feet with Cape Cod berms along both sides of the roadway. In order to even consider a roadway width of less than 24 feet, one of the things that we've asked the applicant to submit was a truck turning analysis for both a single unit truck, which would be standard trash recycling type vehicle, or a snow plow truck that may be going through the project site, and then most importantly, the fire truck design vehicle. So what that analysis has demonstrated is that the roadway width that they're providing is not sufficient to accommodate the turning requirements of the fire truck. There's specific areas internal to the project site where the overhang of the fire truck, either the bumper or the lateral overhang, swings beyond the curb line and into the sidewalk area, definitely beyond the curb line itself. The other area is there's a hammerhead turnaround in one of the dead-end portions of the roadway. If you look at the turning requirements to get into that area and exit, you'll see the fire truck extends beyond the pavement limits. That's not allowed for the fire code. The fire truck needs to stay within the boundary of the roadways. We've also asked that the applicant, in reviewing that analysis and revising it, they need to show us that the truck can actually swing into the project from Ward Street into Viking Lane, so that we can see that the truck can actually make the turning maneuvers there. So as we look at those turning maneuvers, what it's saying to us is the roadway width is 20 feet is not adequate because the fire truck cannot stay within the paved area. And then as we look at the analysis coming from Ward Street, turning on the Viking Lane, that will further show us as to whether the road needs to be widened. So at this point, we're referring back to the standard of 24 feet because the fire truck can't turn with the pavement limits that's proposed at 20 feet. And again, those maneuvers do not comply with fire code, which requires that the truck turning maneuvers happen within the roadway itself. Now, focusing on pedestrian accommodations within the project site, the original site plan did not have an extension out to Ward Street. They've since added that in. Key thing on the sidewalk is its width. It's only proposed at 4 feet wide. That's the absolute minimum that's allowed per accessibility guidelines. If you have sidewalks that are less than 5 feet wide, you are required to have a passing area every 200 feet. And that passing area is a 5 foot by 5 foot wide section. So as you look at the sidewalk, it doesn't comply with accessibility standards. Our recommendation is they make it 5 feet wide, but they need to provide those accessible passing areas every 200 feet. 200 feet is the maximum distance that's required there. So we're looking at roadway width, the truck turning analysis, the fire code, and accessibility guidelines. We reviewed the site plan, but it's going to need to be modified. Those modifications are going to have reverberating effects throughout the development itself, because we had comments relative to the driveway lengths as well, to make sure that if you have a car parked in the driveway, that the distance from the garage door to the edge of the pavement or to the back of the sidewalk, the vehicle won't hang into any of those areas there. So as the road potentially gets wider, as the sidewalks get wider, it's going to start to affect all of those things. So that's all going to need to be looked at as well as analysis this time. The other things relating to the site plan is we've asked the applicant to comment as to the connection to Autumn Circle. Right now, the way they have proposed is the roadway is going to connect into the cul-de-sac area, a very wide area of pavement. So we've asked the applicant to address what are they planning to do with the cul-de-sac. Is that actually going to get narrowed out there to become a standard width, or is it going to remain a wide open circle? If it's going to be a wide open circle, then we need to look at what appropriate traffic measures, traffic control measures we put in place for that connection. An underlying theme as well in our comments, and this relates to the traffic study as well as the site plan, is that as we focus on the project, the applicant is providing accommodations, proposals for traffic calming on the sidewalk internal to their project site so that they have the applicant's traffic engineer mentioned slower travel speeds and reduced potential cut-through traffic on Viking Lane. What we've asked the applicant to address is we understand it's a low volume of traffic that is potentially going to be conveyed through Autumn Circle. However, the same accommodations that they're proposing on Viking Lane for their pedestrians and for their vehicles and for their residents are not being provided on Autumn Circle. So we've asked the applicant to come up with some solutions as to, or some potential measures that could be provided on Autumn Circle, given the fact that if there's some conveyance of traffic and it's connecting into Viking Lane, the question is why wouldn't the same level of accommodations or safety and accessibility be provided in Autumn Circle, given that that is now going to get access into this development. And I think the important thing, the cut-through traffic might be low, the volume of traffic that might be added as a result of this project might be low. But there is a difference in terms of the mindset of someone who is just passing through the neighborhood versus someone who lives there. And generally, the concern that we all have as engineers, traffic engineers, looking at that is speed of traffic. Speed of traffic combined with Autumn Circle not having sidewalks and having a roadway width that's wider than what's being proposed within this development. All of those lead to the potential that you have increased speed of traffic going through Autumn Circle, just given the fact that it's not the same type of road as Viking Lane, and what that may actually mean in terms of safety in the neighborhood itself. So those are our outstanding comments. Again, a number of them really relate to the site plan, and there could be some potential cascading effects that we'll need to review after we receive responses to the comments. So we have any other questions right now, we'll leave on.
I don't have any questions.
I don't either, Jeff. I think you were very over last week.
Jeff, What assumptions did you make about snow removal and the location of where snow would be when you looked at whether or not there was the appropriate clearance? Because if you barely make it when the streets are clean, what's going to happen when it snows?
So the 20-foot width, presumably, if they were to keep it clear, one of the things they've done, because they're not proposing to put a curb against the sidewalk, is the sidewalk, the road would be 20, what they're proposing is 20 feet wide with a Cape Cod berm, which is probably 1.5 feet or so, and then a 2-foot set offset to the sidewalk. It's also a little grass strip. So the presumption is the snow is going to be either on a portion of the Cape Cod berm or on that grass strip itself. But what that also means is when you have a 20-foot wide, presuming to keep it clear, is that the snow is going to be piled up on that edge. That's really why the fire truck needs to, it can't swing beyond pavement because it's going to, it'll be basically in the area where they're storing snow. And that's not something that should happen. Again, that's why it's saying 20 feet is too narrow.
We heard from the applicant's traffic consultant that they're considering some, I think it was traffic calming measures going into biking lane. Have you reviewed those? Do you have any comments on those?
No, what we have indicated is they need to be shown on the site plan of the design. So we don't have a design, we don't have them shown on the site plan, so we haven't seen them. I would also say that I don't believe the fire department has seen them, and they may have some comments relative to access and what their opinions may be for those devices being installed in the community. Sometimes there's some concern about the way that they function.
Is it, in that case, is it the height of the speed table or the width?
It's the height, it's the vertical clearance, it's the height. I will say that properly designed, they are made so that they don't slow down emergency vehicles. However, there's a lot of emergency services departments that just, they don't want them just for the fact that any impedance to their ability to respond, they don't want it at all.
If we're talking about a raised crosswalk, I see that a little bit lower than a speed table or a speed bump.
They're generally like,
I mean, I'm thinking Ward Street a few years ago.
3 inches, anything over 3 inches in rise is not something that would be recommended. So it's a gradual rise, basically.
Have you looked at the location of potential stops for school buses?
No, we've asked the applicant to show us what their plan is and to provide correspondence from the school department as to where that would be accommodated. Again, we've said that the applicant needs to provide some accommodations down at Ward Street. We haven't seen anything.
So you haven't seen it?
No, it's not been shown. We've indicated that that is an outstanding comment that has not been addressed.
And will you see the Thank you. This is really the first in-depth discussion we've had about traffic, and so I'd like to give members of the public the opportunity, if they have questions or comments, limited only to the traffic issue. We've got a lot of other things to cover, but if there's anyone who has anything they'd like to add, please come up.
Thank you. Graham Madison, 12 Autumn Circle again. Just a few points on the traffic study. No doubt they meet some Transport Institute or some other metric to prove they're safe, but these don't hold for common sense. I mean, the first point, reading the report from their traffic engineer, the claim that MBTA bus 222 picks up at High Street and Ward, that's not correct. You can see it on their website. That's either a fabrication to support a narrative or a sign of the quality of the report. The bus may turn around there, but it doesn't stop, which is surprising given he was there parked counting cars. But point one. Number secondly, the measurement at Autumn Circle was done during 2 cold days in January, from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and 4 to 6 p.m. Looking at the MTA schedule, they list 5 peak trains in the morning, 5 peak trains at night. The period of time he's looking at, and again, this is on the same website, covers only 30% of the peak trains. So I don't find that, again, technically, yes, it might be okay, but it doesn't hold common sense. The comment that it's unlikely anyone will use it through a cut-through because it's no longer on a map, again, people will cut through. And if you want an example of that, go down to the CVS parking lot near the train station and watch people cut through that. Even though there are signs clearly say don't do it, and CVS is a well-resourced company, it happens all the time. You almost get killed in that parking lot. The claim the cut-through will actually help traffic, I'd argue the opposite. People avoid that whole intersection like the plague in this town, for those of us who drive there. Secondly, the comment that the models show that cars don't often back up there. I have an office over in Derby Street. I come home, I'm always backed up to take the right turn. That is going to be a cut through. There's no mention about the increased pedestrian or bike traffic, that people are going to cut through that to get down to Ward Street. It's a cut through to get to the school, to Black Rock, to the fields down there. And then finally, there's no analysis where Autumn Circle, that road as it comes in, it splits in two ways. It's not a clear-cut sight line. It's fine given the limited amount of traffic. But if you add more cars whipping around there and crossing over, you're inviting a problem. I mean, overall, this applicant has approached this process seemingly intent to provide the minimum. And safety's come up in the past, and the response has been, we're only required to provide this at this time. Fine. But this project as proposed is reckless on a number of fronts. And when you're talking safety, I think that's a higher bar. A cut through like this and this density is asking for a problem. Somebody is going to die if this goes in. 2 girls were killed in Needham over the weekend, and putting this project as it is here is inviting the same thing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions at this point? Limited to traffic.
Yes, Attorney Jeff DeLisi. I just have a few questions. I don't know if Mr. Mueller or Mr. Dirk can answer them, or both. First, the Autumn Circle, the 2 lots, both on the right and on the left, I think it's 18 Autumn Circle and 23. I'd like to see the site plans show where those driveways are, because I'm not sure that the safety or the traffic analysis took into account that there are 2 driveways on each side of where that right-of-way enters the circle. And I think it makes a lot of sense to get a sense as to where those are for safety purposes. So I'm wondering if they can answer whether that's been analyzed. And I think that the plan should show that. Secondly, site distances. I'm not certain if the applicant's engineer or if Mr. Dirk are aware of the fact that there have been letters submitted to the board from the abutters, both those 2 property owners that I just spoke about in Autumn Circle, as well as the 2 property owners to the north and the south of where Viking Lane intersects with Ward Street. All 4 letters indicating that vegetative buffers would be going up right up against the property line.
In fact, I think Jeff Dirk addressed that because he wants to know where
the triangle
sightlines
is.
in fact cross the property, private property. So
Perfect.
So we're going to have to get an answer to that.
Excellent. Also, wondering whether or not there's going to be a stop sign at the intersection of where the right-of-way enters into Autumn Circle. It appears right now to just be a thoroughfare, and I think that that's a safety aspect that might want to be addressed by the applicant. And to the extent that there's any mitigation that is going to be offered with respect to traffic on the site of the 40B project, I think also that to the extent that there's any mitigation that needs to also be shown in Autumn Circle, that the plans be revised to show where those would be. So right now, effectively, this is a Riverstone 40B project showing the parcel of land where these units are, but de facto now, part of this project will include Autumn Circle because it will be directly impacted. So I think that the site plans now ought to be revised to show this area wherever this mitigation is going to be proposed and what the specs are and where and so forth. So with respect to traffic, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Yep.
So 2 points I want to follow up with, maybe with Mr. Mueller. First, the position of the driveways, and second, a potential stop sign. Have you looked at?
I believe he was referring to the driveways on Autumn Circle at the 2 corners
Yes.
of the intersection with High Street.
No, not at the intersection of High Street. This is where the cut-through.
At Autumn Circle. At the cul-de-sac.
The cul-de-sac.
Oh, I see. Actually, Brad, you might be a better candidate to answer that because I don't know exactly where.
Well, actually, just with respect to
Okay.
what you've told the board, have you considered the location of those driveways?
I haven't designed that cut through, so I can't speak to that. That's why I'm
But
saying.
in terms of, you've given us your testimony in terms of traffic and safety. Has that considered the location of those two driveways?
It did not.
Okay, and then second, have you looked at the stops, whether or not it makes sense to have a stop sign, again, where that cut-through happens?
It's an interesting idea. It is sort of strange if you have a straight road with all of a sudden a stop sign. Granted, it will look a little odd when you have this connector going into a cul-de-sac, and I suppose for that reason a stop sign could be considered. You always want to be careful when you install stop signs unnecessarily, because it eventually leads to people disobeying the signs if they're placed inappropriately. So I'd have to take a look at that, whether or not we think that makes sense.
It'd be helpful if you could let this
Sure.
board know if you would
Absolutely.
recommend that. Thank you. Did you want to add anything, Jeff? Or?
Just very briefly, I think our recommendation is they need to look at the cul-de-sac. Again, that's why we have a comment saying that they need to look at the geometry for all of the reasons that were expressed. You can't have it being just a wide open bulb and then put a straight road through the middle of it, because the driveways are offset. Someone coming out of those driveways can't necessarily see the car that's coming from Viking Lane.
Right.
It needs to get revisited. We need to see that shown on the site plans and then see what they're proposing to do to change the geometry.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Steve Hickey, 5 Autumn Circle. I've heard no reference to the potential impact for any of the service vehicles for this large development, and I'm wondering if there's any calculations for those.
I believe there has been an assessment of, that's taken into account the service vehicles. Am I correct?
When you refer to service vehicles, you mean things like
I mean,
Like delivery trucks,
UPS.
FedEx trucks?
UPS, delivery trucks, FedEx?
Yeah.
That should be accounted for in the trip generation estimates for these developments, so,
should we have that?
to my knowledge. And
It would be
Mr.
standard
Dirk is nodding
practice.
yes.
So I would ask the applicants,
Yes, the trip generation numbers certainly include all delivery vehicles such as UPS or
Yeah.
things like that.
thank you. Okay. Applicant have anything else they wanted to add with respect to traffic at this point?
Did you have any additional comments?
No, we are in receipt of Vanessa's letter dated January 4th, and we realize a more recent letter was submitted. Most of the items in the January 4th letter were addressed with the February 2nd plan submission, but there are a few outstanding items that we need to look at. We need to look at or revisit the truck turning movement analysis that was prepared for the Hingham fire tower truck.
Right.
We will take a look at the code as it relates to I was not aware of the requirement with a 4-foot sidewalk that for every 200 feet you needed a bypass. Many of the towns we work in, the subdivision regulations requirement is a 4-foot sidewalk and there's no provision for that. We'll take a look at the school bus stop waiting area. Obviously, in working with Ron Mueller, we'll look at the speed table recommendation that he made. Addressing the site triangles, we'll provide that diagram at the intersection at Ward Street. We will go out, of course, with the permission of the property owners at the Bethany's and the Mullins. Will have to locate those driveways, so we'll need permission to enter upon those properties to locate the curb cuts and the driveways as they extend up into their property at the cul-de-sac at Autumn Circle. And, with respect to, we will look at, with Mr. Mueller, the placement of the stop sign as that recommendation that Attorney DeLisi made, and it might make more sense rather than to, I think your recommendation, Jeff, was to locate it was it at the property line at Autumn Circle of the two, or was it at the actual intersection at the cul-de-sac?
So I don't have any recommendations.
Right.
I'm just
Right, so
Okay.
let me just stop, so,
Look into it.
so we're gonna have him not respond, I think it's really.
That's fine. We'll look
We're asking
into
you
it.
to, in fact, come up with what the appropriate recommendation
We'll
would be.
look into it. I just, we'll talk to Ron about what he thinks is the most prudent way to address that. I mean, there's a four-way intersection, less than 100 feet from the property line. It might make more sense to make that a stop sign control for all four approaches.
Okay.
And we are in receipt of, I didn't make the meeting last week, but realized that Amory submitted a letter on February 6th. We intend on responding to those comments by early next week. This afternoon, we did submit a more detailed revised waiver list as requested. I sent you the email, Emily, probably right before 5 o'clock. No? Didn't bounce back. I certainly can resend it in the morning.
Yeah, I mean, again, I want to limit this just to traffic right now.
Just the traffic, okay, that's all I have to.
So with respect to the sightlines, when do you think we'd be able to see what those triangles look like?
With the plan submission of next week.
Okay. Are we talking beginning of the week, end of the week, because we've...
Beginning Monday or
Okay,
Tuesday.
that'd be terrific, thank you.
Monday town hall is closed.
So Tuesday?
Tuesday.
Okay. So what we're talking about then is Tuesday, the 20th.
Correct.
Okay, just to make sure we're...
And that was the response to the civil review comments. Would we expect a response to the comments
Right.
raised by Jeffrey Dirk on the same date?
Yes.
I know there were some other folks who had their hands raised. Is it limited to the traffic question? Okay. Because we do want to move on, and so please.
Believe it or not, we have other things.
Yes.
Brad Taylor, 16 Autumn Circle. A few questions on the traffic study that was done. Was it analyzed how many right turns are made at Ward Street onto High Street? And was there a number analyzed of how many left turns were made from High Street onto Ward Street? Because saying that cars aren't going to cut through and avoid a intersection that is 2 times the state average is silly. Cars are going to take that left turn or a right turn to avoid that intersection. Also, in Autumn Circle, there's a very big S-curve. As you come down the hill and you go left, which is the traffic pattern that would be there, if there's any snow, you cannot see anywhere. If there is a car parked along that S-curve, you can barely fit by. There are days where there'll be a UPS truck and a FedEx truck, and I am lucky if my car can get by with more than an inch between the windows. My other concern living down on that circle is if the circle down there needs to change, what will be the impact on the drainage? I know that's drainage, but it's because of the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Okay. Did the applicant have anything further that they wanted to present to the board this evening? There was, the first item that I had was the updated waiver list. It sounds like something may have been sent. I know that we didn't receive it.
Let me respond.
Sure.
It was sent very, very late, as
It's
some of
not
the
my
other
inbox.
submissions
Let me
sometimes
just check
do, so
my
I'm
email.
sure she might have caught it. I did bring some hard copies, if you'd like to see them right now, but we will make sure that the email was also sent, so for ease of distribution. So
If you don't mind, yeah, you can give those to Emily, and we're going to, I don't think
Okay.
we're going to look at them for the first time this evening, but it'd be great if you can provide them to her. Anything else that you wanted to present?
No, not at this time.
So we're going to have to take a look and see what the waiver list is. At the last meeting, we talked about that the board wants to be in a position to propose conditions on the 27th. I asked members of the public to get us their, if they had any requested conditions, concerns, make sure they come into the zoning board office by the end of this week, so we can make sure they're incorporated into the review that this board does. So I urge the public again, this would be a terrific week to get information in to the zoning board, and I would also direct the zoning administrator, Emily, to consult with council and with our peer review engineers and consultants to make sure that you have their input so that we're in a position to review conditions by the 27th of February. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wondered, you also mentioned that you would be responding to civil and peer review comments, and I wondered if we'd also expect a response to concerns raised by the board at the last hearing with respect to the design of the development that extend beyond the engineering issues.
So just to be specific, we talked about the setback, the intensity and density of the project, the proximity of the project to the neighbors. I believe we talked about the recreational space or the lack of recreational space behind the units, no usable space in front of the units, things that we would appreciate your comments and response to.
In doing so, this is reverberating.
It is.
In doing so, part of the question has been the difference between testimony at the hearings, the response, the proposal as represented by the plans, and then written responses or comments back to the board. We have done, I think, the first two. The question is that with regard to the list that you had given before, and I did take good notes, but as I think you used the word truncated, I think it was a small amount of some of the issues they had. Is your desire that you want me to respond to those issues in writing?
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to make sure.
No, so for example, if the issue is lack of recreational space, a response would be, hey, here on the plan, here's where it is, or here's where we would consider putting it. So the writing would need to show up on the plan so we could visibly see what you're recommending, or you may say you don't want to do anything, but if you're going to propose something, we'd like to see it and see it on the plan.
Emily, I have an email dated February 7th from you to Attorney Baker that it looks like there's some bullet points that is a summary of what the board discussed last Tuesday. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes. It is in part what I was referring to. So I believe that email was responsive to a question about the list of missing submittals. So it was simply a list of the missing submittals identified on February 6th. It was not the more comprehensive list of concerns that the board had about the proposed development. So I'd be happy to provide you with that as well, because
I would love
they
it.
directly relate to the
Thank
site
you.
plan.
That would help.
We should confirm schedule. We now have our next meeting on this, am I correct, Emily, is the 27th at 7 p.m. That's the 27th of February. Do we want to, at this point, discuss future meetings, or?
We could tentatively talk about future meetings. We kind of have, it would be helpful to know the applicant's availability to meet potentially on Tuesdays in the month of March, in the event that meetings are necessary, so.
Yes, so looking at March, there's the 6th, 13th, 20th, and 27th of March.
27th, we do have one conflict on the board.
I'm not
so
available.
that-
Okay, so
On
then
March 27th.
6th, 13th, and 20th. Are there any days that you
Yeah,
are not available that?
To let you know, the 13th that week, I will not be even in the country. So I will not be able to come. So if we could avoid that, I think that'd be very helpful.
Is that entire week or just the
I'm gone the whole week.
week of the 12th?
12th through the 16th, correct.
Got it, okay. Thank you. Susan, anything else?
6th and the 20th.
Other than the calendar?
Yeah.
I don't have anything else.
Okay. So, I don't, at this point, since we have a date on the 27th, I don't think we need to schedule something beyond that right now. Knowing that we're on the 27th, we can have a discussion about subsequent hearing dates. You okay with that?
February
I'm
27th.
sorry, can you just say the date again? I'm sorry.
So the 27th is our next hearing.
Yes.
And then on the 27th, we can make decisions about subsequent hearing dates.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, I would accept, Larry, I'm sorry, did you, either one of you,
Nope.
any other comments or questions?
No, that's fine.
Okay, I'd accept the motion to continue this hearing. I'm sorry, yes, ma'am? Actually, before you do, you're right. I did not, before continuing, I know there are members of the public who do have other comments and questions. I limited it before to traffic, and I do want to take just a couple minutes to allow members of the public to speak on other issues relating to this project. So, yes, ma'am.
Joyce Bethany, 23 Autumn Circle. I think that if the board were to allow this 40B having access over my land to a public street, that such a situation would be tantamount to a taking without just compensation of land that I have owned and have been exclusively paying taxes on for 42 years.
We've got the message. Yes, sir.
Stephen Hurley, 49 Ward Street. I have a handout with a map. Could I give it to you?
Sure.
Sure. Excuse me. The map is on the last page.
It's yours. You have an extra one for the...
And maybe one for the applicant.
I emailed this, but I don't, it didn't sound
You
like
weren't
I
on the
got it.
list?
You want to give one to the, we got an extra one, sir?
I have one more.
One for the applicant?
I need it to.
Well,
Okay.
I'll tell you what. I'll share mine,
Right.
and I'll look off of Joe's.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll
Yeah.
share.
Okay.
Please.
I wanted to discuss the wetland implications for my property on 49 Ward Street. My lot is directly across from where Viking Lane intersects with Ward Street. And the water from this project, the surface water runoff, goes in three directions. Some of it goes down Autumn Circle, down to Autumn Circle. Some of it goes under Ward Street through into storm drains, under Ward Street, and crosses down by the Jehovah's Witness Church. There's another pipe that goes under Ward Street and empties adjacent to 37 Ward Street, which is up by High Street. It's the last house before you get to the dentist's office. So you have two directions in terms of water going into the wetlands, which is behind my property. Now, if you look at the map, you'll see that there is a stream. And this is a plot plan. This is not a map I created. This is a stream that runs parallel to Ward Street from roughly the Jehovah's Witness Church all the way up to 37 Ward Street, and it meets another stream which runs in a southerly direction. The first stream I mentioned runs in a northerly direction. They both meet behind my property and join to form a third stream which runs in a westerly direction down towards Weymouth. And all of this water, for the most part, migrates into those streams underneath High Street, down in Weymouth, and eventually makes its way down to the Herring Run, I'm told, but I do know it goes into Weymouth. Now, the issue here, and if you'll, the first page is basically describing these streams and where the water goes. It's important that you understand that these streams are shallow, very shallow, but they exist. And when you are considering building a project on 6 acres that's open land, and the land absorbs the water, and now you're going to put basically buildings and asphalt, there's hardly any land left. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of surface water that's going to migrate into those streams I'm referring to. Now, if you look at page 2, it talks about compensatory storage requirement for this land, because you're flooding my property. It's inevitable that this water is going to come up over the bank further into my property. It already floods occasionally, and it's going to flood the adjacent houses, because there's about 5 or 6 houses involved where the stream runs. So you're going to dump all this water into the streams. It's going to raise the level and come up onto my property. It's going to increase the water flow rate. Now, both of those issues are addressed here by the, please excuse me, I didn't put my glasses on. In an excerpt I took from the Berkshire Environmental Action Team discussing Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Section 5. In the notation they say here, one of the concerns related to building in any land subject to flooding is that the next time the area floods, some water will be displaced by the new building, and that water will have to go somewhere. That somewhere could be a neighbor's property or land downstream of the project. Think about filling a pail half full with water and then adding a brick. The addition of the brick causes the water level in the pail to rise. The Wetland Protection Act prohibits any work that will increase the elevation to which an area will flood or increase the velocity of water flow during a flood. However, it does allow for an applicant to create compensatory storage. This means that if you know how much water your project will displace, you can create a new depression that will hold this amount of water in times of flooding. The depression can be a basin or a pond, or can be a lowering of an area by grading. And this is important. The compensation must be in the same area as the displacement caused by the project. Now that's right out of the Wetlands Protection Act. So my point is, if the builder proceeds, he has to have a pond on there large enough to hold a tremendous amount of water, and then after the rain stops, he gradually pumps it into the storm drains, and they go out into the streams that I'm referring to in the map. And in that way, that will protect the land from being flooded. So I would urge the board to include this in the order of conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Counsel, you also had your hand raised, or not?
Yeah.
I
I just wanted the board to know that today I filed an action in the land court on the right-of-way issue. So the legal issue, I recognize won't be adjudicated before this board, but I think it's relevant for the board to know, and I'll be filing a copy of that in the coming days. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else? If not, then I would,
Joe?
Yes.
I apologize. To the extent that there's been a couple of items tonight that it seems I didn't receive but were submitted, I just wanted to let folks know that our email provider routinely rejects documents with a .doc file extension. Yours just came through with a .doc. If folks could try to use the file extension .docs, D-O-C-X, it won't cause problems, so that may have been the reason why it didn't originally come through.
So save it as a more recent Word.
Yeah.
Word
Yes,
file.
more recent Word
version.
file.
Okay. If you have that facility.
okay. Thank you all for your patience and your participation. I'll accept the motion to continue this hearing to, make sure we get the date right,
February 27th at 7 p.m.
I got emailed everything.
February 27th at 7 p.m.
7 p.m., so moved.
For a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are continued. Thank you.
Emily, we doing Shipyard now?
Yes.
Robin will.
Robin's coming up.
All right, this is, woo, that's loud. Okay, this is now the Zoning Board of Appeals. It is 7:52 p.m. The second item on the agenda tonight is an application from Chain Marina LLC of 24 Shipyard Drive. This application is continued from January 16, 2018 for a special permit A2 and special permit A1 to modify previously approved plans for the Hingham Shipyard Redevelopment through repair of an existing fisherman's pier and reconstruction of associated buildings in the industrial district and floodplain protection overlay district. Who's here today?
I am. Do I have to use the?
You do.
Yes, we're on Edge County.
Good evening. I am Jeff Taccio, and I represent the applicant, Chain Marina. What we have, and I should introduce Sara E is here, and then also Vin DiTullio, General Manager. We're here this evening to complete repairs on a portion of the commercial fishing pier over at the shipyard. It's got addresses of 24 Shipyard Drive, also I think between 4 and 6C Essington Drive. As time's gone on and the shipyard was platted out differently, there were different addresses as the streets were created, so that's why I've listed a few addresses. What's happening this evening is we're looking at the A2 for the modification from the 2003 for the shipyard, and then also there's an A1 because it's in that floodplain district. Last evening, I was before the planning board on the site plan portion of the mirror of the same exact project, and we were able to get a decision from them last night with a couple of conditions. Basically what's happening is we've got a 222 plus or minus linear foot segment of the commercial fishing pier, which is being repaired. It's currently the existing timber pier that's out there from when it was built during the Second World War for the destroyer escorts. It was the outfitting pier. And it's at a position now where big, thick timbers were laid down, and it was just kind of a brutalist architecture that was there that allowed for rail cars, et cetera, to be there when they actually loaded the ships. All of that's deteriorated to a point where there are visible holes there. You can go there, and it's got flex when if you jump on different areas. So it's relatively dangerous. It's got the fisherman sheds that are there. They're kind of made out of plywood. Some have just rubber flat roofs. Others have some shallow roofs that are out there, and they're rather deteriorated and dilapidated. There are the commercial fishermen who use the slips right next to that at the bottom of the pier. There are 11 slips that support those uses topside on the pier, and it's a situation where they've kind of been moving around. Stevens Seafood, for example, has been moved out temporarily because the pier underneath the structure that they used primarily is just too dangerous to allow them to be supported there. What is proposed, and it's in there, and you can see kind of some rainbow plan, if you will. I sat down with Vin and we went through the exact sequencing of how they're going to propose to do the repairs. We color-coded it so that you could follow along what's going to happen. What we've done is we've masked it out or mapped it out according to the, just where each of the pier pilings are. So they're numbered. This area is from number 14 up to number 47, and we go through piling by piling what the changes are going to be. So in effect, what's happening is we'll have a situation where they're going to go in on day one that they're able to do this, remove those structures, they get thrown into a dumpster, and then take off the top side of the piering, the really thick stuff. That goes away as well. And then what they'll do is they'll begin to start building that back to a point where that's going to be finished, the decking will go back on, and then the structures will be erected back into those areas. What's happening is, from a square footage perspective, we've got 4,044 square feet of identified structure within that area between piling 14 and piling 47, and they're going to be aggregated differently, more efficiently, instead of having all of these little boxes. But they're going to propose to put another 4,044 square feet of better laid out, better situated structures back on with clapboards, shingles, slight peak on the roofs with asphalt shingles. So what happens is they're able to replicate the exact same square footage, but doing it in a more efficient way, also keeping it 4 feet minimum off the outer edge of where the pier is, so that the public access can happen on the outside of the pier. So what that'll do is that'll allow for, instead of really these kind of crammed quarters that have really low utility as far as storing things, now they're going to be a little more efficient use of the same square footage. And then by having the weather tight exteriors, they won't they won't rot away like the current ones do.
Jeff, what happens to the public access when this work is being done?
So what'll happen is, for that segment, it won't happen. Frankly, it's pretty dangerous now. So if a segment comes in and the work's being done, they're going to have to suspend that. So if you're walking down and you come to, for example, a construction fence, you're going to have to go up to the bulkhead. And if you want to go back down, I guess theoretically you could do that depending on what's required for the construction fencing and whatnot. I've provided.
I'm concerned with the safety, not.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's not a situation when this work is being done. It's going to be buttoned up pretty tightly. That's the other reason that I gave to you folks a really detailed with some projected dates. I also put in what tenants are being moved around, and the reason that I did that was. When Vin talked to me about it, he's got, it's pretty cool. When you go into Marina, they've got all the Marina, and they've got the slips, and they've got the magnets of who uses what. They've got everything laid out, and he's got a huge layout of where everyone's going. So I just said, let's just use all of that. The other piece of the equation is, I was asked by both agents, is this going to be the same use? The answer is yes. And the other issue was, geez, these are looking much better. We're not going to have, an ice cream shop, et cetera, et cetera. And the answer is no. And as a matter of fact, I made the same representation to the planning board last night because their question was parking under the purview of the site plan review, and then also if there was an A3 required, and no changes whatsoever. They have a condition that if the uses of these were ever proposed to invite the public into the structures, that they'd have to come back in. So I think that that obviously makes a lot of sense. They had another question about the parking, and just super quickly, in 2003, what happened was the parking was a requirement was 1 space per 1 berth. And what happened was they asked for relief that it be 0.5 parking spaces per one berth. and that was supported by various reports, if you remember what was going on back then. So what happened was it was allowed. In the interim, we've changed the bylaw so that it is now actually 0.5 per berth. So everything that's there, nothing's changes, and instead of being under an exception from 2003, it basically complies with the current 5A for the parking. So no changes there. The other issue was a question that Lieutenant DiNapoli had about the hydrants. The hydrants are on the other side of the parking lot, and I've given you folks basically an exhibit. I don't remember if it's C or D to yours, but what happened was he showed Lieutenant DiNapoli the plans. He took a look at them. Also, he took a look at the plans that Captain Damstra put together for when the boats are stored there during the winter. That's adhered to every single year, will continue to be. And then Lieutenant DiNapoli issued a letter to you folks saying that no requirement that there be any change in the hydrants. Obviously, they have to still conform with the parking plan there for the winter usage. So the other questions had to do with disposal. There's a dumpster that's there next to the boat lift that is there, that will continue to be in use, and other other utilities as far as electric, water that are there currently will continue to be used, but in the newly repaired pier and then the buildings. Other issues, I think that covers those. If I could segue into the floodplain. The floodplain here is elevation 12, and it primarily is where the water is, and then it runs up to where the old natural kind of shoreline was. As you know, this was installed during the Second World War. There's a bulkhead there. And what that does is that basically establishes a floodplain of 12 on the face of the existing bulkhead. The current pier is at 14.5, so it's 2.5 feet above the floodplain level. So it doesn't, doesn't cause any of the issues that are sought to be avoided under the A1. What is going to happen in this instance is that instead of having those very thick timbers, they're actually, when they rip everything off, they're going to get, is it 2x6s? 2x6. They're going to get 2x6s, kind of, and what about the joist sizes? 2x12s. 2x12s. And then what's going to happen is you're going to have the 2x12s put in, and then you're going to have the 2x6 decking put on top of that. What that's going to do is that's going to raise it up from 14.5 to 15.6. So what's going to basically happen is the pier is going to be raised up to the height of where the top of the bulkhead is, where the parking lot is. Currently, if you're out there and you're walking along the end of, or the edge of that parking lot, you get to the top of the bulkhead and there's a 1-foot drop. For the people that work there, they could do that in their sleep. For everyone else, it's a real surprise. What's going to happen is it's now all going to be level, and again, it's now going to be, basically 3.5 feet above your elevation 12 flood level. So I believe for that reason, it certainly meets all the requirements with respect to being up and above and not proposing any construction in a way that will, impair flood drainage, et cetera. With that, I think I'm prepared to answer any questions if you got them. I should say I know I'm prepared.
I don't have any questions on it. Just
I don't
making
have any
improvements, yeah.
I don't have any questions either, Jeff. That was pretty comprehensive. Okay, so we need to go through the. Oh, is anybody here for this hearing?
No comments, Joe?
Okay, so now we need to go through the approval criteria. Joe, do you want to do that?
I have my list here. Okay, so these are the criteria for a special permit. And actually, Jeff, you've given us
Joe.
Yes.
One option,
Yep.
so there's two different special permits, so we could go through all the findings each time, but in past applications specific for this property, the marina building that
You've
the board
incorporated
looked
the-
at. Yeah, the board has instead just made a finding that the proposed modification will not affect the specific findings made by the board in connection with its special permit A1 and A2 decision for the Hingham Shipyard Redevelopment as originally issued on May 12th, 2003, and amended.
And so with that finding, we would then incorporate the findings that were necessary for a special permit.
Yeah, we could, I mean, in the past, we've literally just included that phrase, so by reference, it in essence is incorporating them, but not pulling the language in.
Yep.
Okay, so we would find that the proposed modification will not affect the specific findings made by the board in conjunction with its special permit A1 and A2 decision for the Hingham Shipyard Development originally issued on May 12th, 2003, as amended. And so then I would move that we make that finding and that we allow the proposal subject to the following conditions. First, that all conditions of the previous special permit decisions for the property remain in effect unless specifically modified by this decision. Second, the applicant will construct the project in a manner consistent with the approved plans and the representations made at the hearings before the board. And third, in accordance with the provisions of the Hingham zoning bylaw, the conditions imposed in the planning board site plan approval as voted on February 12th, 2018 are binding conditions to this decision of the zoning board of appeals.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'd second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent, thank you
Good.
very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I was giving you a tough job.
You were.
Thank you. Okay. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Where's the centers?
I know.
Good
I'm
candies
eating the
there
chocolate.
tonight.
I'm eating the chocolate.
Seated tonight, or you want to stay there?
I can move back. I can move over. Okay, sure.
I'll write it down.
That's all you, buddy.
That's me.
All right.
This is me.
Sorry.
Good one? Aye.
No,
That's yours.
I think that's Joe's.
Nope, that's mine. No, that's not mine. That's yours.
Okay, then this must be Joe's then. You got two of them.
Yeah, I had 2 hearings today.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry. Never mind.
See ya.
Never mind.
Okay, it is now 8:07, and the next item on the agenda is an application of Freddie Salamel of 170 Rockland Street, and I understand there's a request to continue to March 2nd, 2018?
March 20th, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that was me. I read that incorrectly.
Before we do that, this is one of the hearings that I reviewed, the hearing recording of the previous hearing session, and in accordance with the Mullins rule, I'm okay for this, so.
You can act on the continuation.
Right, okay. We can act on the continuation. So do we have a motion to continue?
Do we have an extension on the hearing, on the decision deadline, or
Due for 30 days beyond when it would have otherwise expired, which would bring us to May 2nd, 2018.
Right, so with that extension of the decision deadline, I move we continue this hearing until
March 20th.
March 20th at 7 p.m.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next item is an application from Claudia B. Olsen of 249 North Street to modify a use variance decision dated November 15, 2007. And again, I understand there's another request to continue to March 20th.
That is correct, and extend the decision deadline to April 20th.
So with that decision extension of the decision deadline,
I apologize, April 17th.
April 17th.
Yes,
Okay.
for the decision deadline.
That's fine. So I move that we continue the hearing to March 20th at 7 p.m.
Do we have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving right along, the next application is from Sara E. Smithson of 18 Pilgrim Road for a variance to replace and enlarge an existing attached garage, resulting in a 9-foot side yard setback where 20 feet is required in Residence District B. And again, we have a request to continue until March 20th, 2018. And do we have a corresponding extension?
No, I apologize, but the applicant is actually in the audience. We wanted to discuss it. The decision deadline is presently the 25th. It's 5 days after the continued hearing, so if we were not able to get an extension this evening, we could get it on the 20th, or if the applicant is available this evening, we could also request it now.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
we have a form, Sarah, if you're able, so the request came in via email and it just didn't reference an extension date. We have a form that sets it up a little bit more cleanly. I don't know how much information you want. We'll actually also be re-advertising the application because there was a modification received that changes the nature of the relief requested.
okay.
So.
So are you willing to sign an extension of the decision deadline? Yes,
Yeah.
yes, okay.
You have the form?
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have a motion to continue?
And we're continuing to which date?
March 20th.
Wait till she's,
Which one are we on? Sorry.
this is for Sarah, this is
Sarah?
18
Okay.
Pilgrim Road?
Yes.
So, Emily, what's the decision deadline now? So I move that we continue this hearing to March 20th at 7 PM, subject to the decision deadline being extended.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Make sure I'm here on March 20th.
I guess I'm here on March 20th.
Yeah, I was just saying the same thing.
Unless we get someone else to mull it.
Well, if we continue,
Right. Then
continue
you might
the
be here
ZBA to
anyways.
March 20th, I'll be here anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, I just can't do the 27th. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is an application from Nicholas Bonn of Bear Cove Properties, 3 Otis Street. This is an application that was continued from January 16th, 2018 for a special permit A1 to modify an existing floating dock system for bottom anchored to pile supported in the floodplain protection overlay district. Hello?
Hello, good evening. My name is Mary Kate Schneeweiss. I'm an environmental specialist with Fields and Thomas. I'm here tonight with Nick Baum from Bear Cove Marinas and Brian Sweeney from Haley and Aldrich to discuss some improvements to Bear Cove Marina. So the project consists of the installation of 11 steel piles installed adjacent to the existing walkway. The board issued a special permit for similar work that was, I believe, back in 2016 for making a temporary bottom-anchored floating dock a permanent pile-supported floating dock. Similarly, this is an existing walkway that is bottom-anchored when we wish to make it pile-supported. We're seeking a special permit A1 for work within the flood zone. The piles are located along the dock here. There's 11 in total. They will be driven by, I believe, vibratory hammer to a depth of 15 feet of embedment. So this is ultimately to increase the safety and stability of the marina. It's going to result in no change to the marina layout. It will be simply just the conversion from bottom anchored to pile supported. The project currently has a order of conditions, Chapter 91 license, and Army Corps of Engineer approval. So this is the, I believe, last permit that we need for the project. All other approvals have been received. And we respectfully request that the board issue a special permit with conditions.
The pier will be in the same footprint as the existing floating pier, right? With the exception of the outboard piles, which will take up a little bit of extra real estate, but Right, but the float itself is the same footprint, same size, okay. I think I remember this one when it came through.
This has been continued a number of times, is that right? We were waiting for the chapter to be
Right.
revised.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
There's a provision in the zoning bylaw that was called to our attention after application that said that the board could not act until
Right.
after receipt of the chapter 91 license.
Yep. Yep.
I was in a meeting with Charlie Baker this morning, and I asked him to please hurry up and sign Chapter 91 licenses, please. Sometimes they sit there for a while.
It's true, it's true.
Emily, have we heard from the Board of Health on this?
We did not hear from the Board of Health on this particular application or the planning board. A request for comments went out last year, and so the 45 days that's allotted for
well passed.
comments is well past. We did receive the confirmation from the commission that they had reviewed the project.
Yeah, we didn't hear from the harbor master. No, okay.
It's in essence what's there, except for the method of supporting the structure has changed.
Okay. Is there anybody here in the audience for this application? Doesn't appear to be. Do you have any questions, Joe?
I don't.
Do you have any questions,
Nope,
Joe?
nope.
All right, so we need to go through the approval
Now,
criteria
this time we
now.
do.
You want to do it?
Sure. So we need to make several findings to issue a permit. First, the proposed use of the site is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw. For the following reasons, the proposed project represents a minor modification of an existing marina use allowed by right in the zoning district. The project forwards the goals of the Hingham Harbor Overlay District by facilitating additional access to water-based recreational uses. Accordingly, the proposed project is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw. Second, the proposed use complies with the purposes and standards of the relevant specific sections of the bylaw. For the following reasons, the proposed dock will not affect the natural flow of waterways, nor will it reduce flood storage capacity within the floodplain protection district. Third, the specific site is an appropriate location for use, structure, or condition compatible with the characteristics of the surrounding area for the following reasons. The subject property supports Bear Cove Marina, which is an allowed use in the waterfront business zoning district. The proposed dock will be a minor expansion of the existing use at the property and is accordingly an appropriate location. Fourth, the use as developed will create positive impacts or potential adverse impacts will be mitigated for the following reasons. No adverse impacts will result from the proposed dock and proposed support piles. Fifth, there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians for the following reasons. Proposed project consists of the addition of a new floating dock adjacent to an existing marina. There will be no impact on pedestrian or vehicular traffic on nearby public ways.
With respect to that one, this may be a problem with copying and pasting from past decisions,
Yes.
but it's really just the addition of a new support system for an existing
dock.
float.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Dock, so we could wordsmith that.
And then, next, adequate and appropriate facilities exist or will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use for the following reasons. Adequate facilities exist for the proposed dock. And finally, the proposed project meets accepted design standards and criteria for the functional design of facilities, structures, stormwater management, and site construction for the following reasons. No additional facilities beyond those already serving the property will be required. So I think we have the appropriate framework for issuing a special permit. Sure. Any conditions, Emily, that you recommend other than in accordance with the plans?
I don't see any others.
So I move that we issue a special permit, subject to condition that the project proceed in accordance with the plans and representations made to this board.
Do we have a second?
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Piece of cake.
Okay, it is now 8:20 p.m. The next item on the agenda is an application from Robert Goeldner of 102 High Street for a variance from section 4A of the zoning bylaw and such other relief as necessary to construct an attached 22 by 22 foot two-car garage resulting in an 8.8 foot rear yard setback where 20 feet is required in Residence District B. Who do we have for the applicant?
Hi, I'm Robert Goeldner.
And Alan Kearney, representing the...
Okay. Al, do you want to tell us what the project, or?
It's 104 High Street and, or is it 102 High Street? And we're asking for relief, side yard relief, to modify an existing undersized garage and create a larger but yet still properly scaled two-car garage attached to the existing structure. The existing garage is within the setback, and the existing incursion is 162 square feet, and the proposed incursion is 251 square feet. So the total will be 413 in the side yard setback. And it takes, I think I attached a photo in the submission package. The existing garage is an older garage. It's undersized front to back, side to side, and the garage doors doesn't properly accommodate a standard vehicle of today's size. So,
Yeah, I'll just add that I think that the existing garage now is part of the original 1940 structure. It was actually a two-car garage with this house. They stole part of the garage to put an addition on, and just want that extra spot back, and a little bit higher entrance to get a little larger vehicle in. As right now, I couldn't get it into that garage.
I was going to say, you can't get the Yukon in, right? Yeah.
No, don't have a Yukon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, we understand that we are asking for that variance within the setback. Looked at a couple of different design options, and
we did, yeah.
And this is the one that we thought would work.
yeah, it was the least invasive into the side yard setback, taking into consideration the topography and the existing driveway configuration and those kinds of.
Where are the topography issues on the?
The back of the house has a higher grade, and there's a retaining wall that's back there now. The first consideration was moving it back, and we had some septic issues to deal with, but they were overcomable. But it was just roof lines and overall sort of massing. It was almost forced back there, so this is the cleanest solution.
To go further to the side, to actually just make the existing garage wider, would actually probably encroach even further into the
That was the first one.
setback. Yeah, that was the first design we looked at.
So Al, if I understand you, you looked at relocating it to the back of the dwelling or somewhere in the back, which
Yeah,
would mean
so, yeah,
redoing the
making it
driveway in
deeper
its
and wider,
entirety too,
further
right?
back, sort of adhering to the existing face of the garage where it is now.
Right.
Growing it in two directions, back and side.
Okay.
And we come up with this idea with a 22 by 22 foot footprint, which is an undersized garage, but still, right on the edge of.
Right. Right. Yep.
So, I'm confused. Is this, I thought didn't it say a rear yard?
It did say, it meant to say
8 foot?
Okay.
Okay.
It's not.
It should say side.
All right,
So it's right, so it's supposed to be.
There are two fronts.
Intrusion to the side yard.
It says
Side
rear.
yard.
It's technically the rear.
Oh, it is?
Well,
Oh, yes,
yeah.
it's two fronts, my bad.
Because there's two fronts.
And the primary front lot line is that on Whitcomb, because it was this board's proposed zoning amendment that defined the
Right.
lot lines. So the longest street frontage is on Whitcomb, the line most directly opposite that is
The
the
rear
one that
yard.
they're projecting into.
So, am I correct? So right now, the existing garage is 13.4 feet from
The rear yard side.
the rear, and now you want to change it from 13.4 to 8.8?
What's directly adjacent to your home? On the side where you're,
That's a neighboring
94.
home.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you how close that is to that line. It's not directly there.
okay.
There's existing fence there, right?
There's a fence, yeah.
Right, the fence stops though, right? Before you get to where the
Keeps going.
addition is? Or does it?
You know what, there's a fence in the back, and then in the front, it's just vegetation, it's hedges or plantings and a tree line, really.
Yeah, growth. I have a photo of the back topography.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Yeah. So, I can't go here, I can't go. Outstanding. So the existing garage is,
13.4 to the corner.
right,
That's existing here.
But then the existing garage is here.
Correct. Yeah, there's the door. This door here is right there. Adjacent to this bluestone apron. So that's the
Joe,
apron.
if you look at this photograph, that's the front, so it's kind of like this.
Okay.
All right, so,
What's here?
Garage. This is it's garage space. There's only one door, so you kind of have to pull in at an angle to make it.
So how big is the existing garage? Like, what is the square footage of the existing garage?
So the existing, so you pull in from High Street, I'm assuming, right here.
Right, and this is the bluestone here.
right.
So it's like this.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, let's turn it. So,
18 by 28.
It's currently 18 by 28?
Yeah.
28 deep by 18 wide?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're looking for an additional, what? 6 feet? 4 feet?
4 feet width? 22. The proposed garage is 22 by 22, so it's an
But did you
additional
move the
4
garage
feet.
over? I guess I'm just confused.
Right.
Because you're,
Yeah, it appears as if you're taking the
Garage door.
existing garage space and making that something else, right? Because you won't need that
Potentially,
anymore.
or just more storage.
Yeah, and more
Right,
storage.
so the garage becomes something else.
Else
storage.
entirely, and
Yeah.
it's a whole new addition
That's
on the
all new.
front.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, and there's the incursion. It's existing, and that's the incursion.
right.
oh, I see. Why can't you, why wouldn't
That
you
was the-
just,
That was the first effort. And it just became troublesome because of the pinch point back here became even more of a pinch point. When we went from this 18 to maybe 22 or 24
Yeah.
foot garage.
Right, I see how the,
I don't
For an
understand.
additional
well,
4
the
feet,
side of the
18
house doesn't line up, or it's not parallel to the side yard.
That's
side yard
correct.
line.
And then it just,
It gets narrower,
And then
as it
pulling
gets
in
closer to
and
the
backing up.
lot line, the further back you go. Right.
But it wouldn't, an additional 4 feet would bring you to 9.4, and they're proposing 8.8.
Right.
Right?
like, yeah, maybe, I'm sorry if I
Okay, I
misspoke.
see what you're saying.
But I guess we probably started at 24 by 28 foot garage, I think.
Right.
Then we started pulling it forward, and then became a turning radius when you actually needed to physically get in and out of the bay, which was over on this side. You had no way to, there was no place to back out into. So we thought using the apron over here was the most convenient way to come in and back out the garage.
So in other words, that extra bay would be too close to the side yard line,
Yeah.
or the edge of the property, right?
Al, what are you referring to as the topography? Is it,
This is raised up 2 feet, and it gets steep. The back of the yard kind of slopes back towards the home, so This is tight to grade, some living space, and then this is raised up and retained.
Do we have the elevations on a map?
No. Topography?
Yes.
No. No.
Yeah, that would be helpful to see.
So I think
The other issue with just making it 4 feet wider was that, so when we get 2 cars in there in the back, there's not a lot of storage.
I see the constraint, and the issue we're struggling with is that the lot imposes that constraint. And you get that constraint when you get the lot. And,
No, I understand.
And I don't know if moving it further back into the lot would work or not, Al? I mean, in its location, but move it further into the lot. I know you got the bluestone apron, I assume that's right by the front door.
More imposing as.
You don't want to block the front door, obviously,
That's what
so.
happens, it's finding the balance.
I mean, it looks like you could move the driveway a little bit over there, so you could do that.
Way over, but then
Right.
you've got this streetscape that's really fronted with the
Mhm.
garages.
Mhm.
Not ideal architecturally, but I understand.
The neighboring house where we would be, I guess, encroaching on that, they did a garage addition. No, they did not encroach on any setbacks when they did that work, but,
That's what we're struggling with, though, because there's a lot of people in Hingham who have 1-car garages, who want 2-car garages. And, you know, there has to be a justification for a variance beyond, I want a 2-car garage and I'm gonna push my house into the setback, where the setback exists for a reason. I think it would be helpful, Al, to see elevations or to see something that justifies the variance criteria, at least for soil shape or topography, as to why it can't be placed elsewhere on the lot. That's just my view.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, we gotta figure out if this is the only location and whether or not there's.
Right,
It can be smaller.
You were
Right.
trying to find the balance between how much relief we're seeking and
Sure.
how much that imposes the streetscapes.
Right.
Correct.
Right, well, I mean, the streetscape is important also, but that's not really
I know.
part of what we have to consider.
I know.
Well, so it sounds like we want some more
Yeah,
information.
I would,
Right,
yeah.
and, so if the driveway, instead of going here, went over here,
Yeah, oh yeah, you can repave the front, we can pull the whole thing over and do a repave something, but that's.
no, I'm not saying in front, I'm saying all the way to the side. So instead of being on this side, it would be on the other side. Does that not work?
no, this is the front of the original cape.
Okay.
So I don't want to put a garage right in front of the living room and
Okay.
that area.
And we talked about the idea of coming in off of Whitcomb and parking, grading, then we did the, of course, the second.
What's over here
Over,
on the other side?
That's a bedroom, right?
but they wouldn't have access
Yeah.
for driveways. But, so I understand the septic's here, the leaching is all,
There's a septic and a septic tank here, pit.
So it's
Yeah, so it goes to the tank and it splits off to the.
Is it kind of like a cesspool, or?
Yeah, I guess it's sort of like a leaching, it's not a cesspool, it's
Oh,
like
it's
a
a-
leaching.
but you couldn't
Tank, okay.
pull in like right here?
We could, but then I mean, but actually I say no, because that's really when it gets high. If you saw the topography, you'd.
That's right,
realize-
okay, that'd be
Yeah.
helpful to,
Yeah,
I know.
okay.
that would help us.
Well, it's also, would be detached.
Right, I know.
That's not ideal, but you may have a trade-off between an attached 1-car and a detached 2-car.
Right.
Because
The
the lot-
topo would,
Yep.
you'd see
Okay.
it's probably 6 or 7 feet.
So do you want to continue and try and get us
Yeah, I
the
think, we get some more
topography information?
about it.
Yeah.
Maybe one of the blocks.
And if you've got other options that you want us to consider, that'd be helpful. I think. Where are we on decision?
Sorry. March 30th.
Okay, good. So we're good.
So we have enough time. So would we be continuing then to the March 20th? March 20th?
Might as well.
I mean, Joe will be here, so.
Right, yeah, Joe will be here.
So why don't we, let's get an extension now, so
Yep.
we have 30 days beyond that.
Is that okay with you, March 20th?
Are you around? Not a school vacation week. or-
No, that's next week. March 20. Let me just.
That's next, I'm sorry, February 20th, no, March 20th.
March
20th.
Right, yeah.
Right, so that's,
5
the
weeks.
Third Thursday.
Right, it's 5 weeks from tonight.
No, I won't be around on the 20th. March 20th, I won't be there. But you could represent.
I can be here. I mean, I'm available if we want to.
Is that
Is that okay?
okay
Yeah,
with you?
yeah, that's fine.
You trust Al?
Yep.
Yeah, I do. Should I?
Hey, now.
Okay.
No comment.
And so let's get the extension. So I move that we, is anyone here for?
Is anyone here for this application? Anyone from the public? I didn't think so. Okay.
So I move we continue this hearing to the 20th of March at 7 PM,
Okay.
subject to continuation, extension of the decision deadline to 30 days beyond the 20th.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Moving right through these things.
That's what happens when I'm in charge, Rachel.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Right. I still have the record.
Okay. And last but not least, it is now 8:37, and we have an application from 37 Derby Street LLC, Robert L. Shepard, for a special permit A1 under Section 5B of the zoning bylaw, and such other relief is necessary to replace an existing 24-square-foot ground sign with a new 21-square-foot ground sign in Business District B. Hello?
Hello, I'm Robert Shepard, 37 Derby Street, LLC. And we have an existing sign that was permitted in error, I guess, in 2009, which Emily brought to our attention when we came in to modify this sign. So what we're proposing to do is remove that sign and install a new wood-carved sign, which I believe everyone has a picture of.
Yep.
To replace the existing sign in the existing location.
Okay. And it's just a wood sign, there's no lighting or anything like that?
No, there is lighting on the existing sign,
Okay, but there's none on
but there's
the-
none on the wood sign.
Okay.
The existing sign is just not very attractive.
And
So
it's
we-
going in the exact same footprint,
Right,
and
right.
it's just being
Exact same
replaced with something
footprint.
smaller?
Right.
Yep.
Is any of this reflective? So if headlights hit it,
No, it's too far off the street. You'd have to be turning into the property to have a reflection.
Right.
And it has to be that far off because they're putting a sidewalk in front of the building next year, the Mass Highway.
Okay. Seems very self-explanatory to me and straightforward. I
Right, right,
don't-
so it's, I mean, it says it's 20-foot-6 off the pavement, but how far off the property line? You know?
There's a, I believe I have it here. I gotta look up the exact.
I mean, I don't think it's in the setback, but I just want to be sure.
No, it isn't.
Yeah.
Gotta put my glasses on.
So it's the building that's right across from Recreation Park Drive, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. It is 5 feet, no, it's 17 feet 6 inches from the property line on the front of the lot. And then there's 5 feet from there to the actual pavement line.
Okay.
Right, so it needs to be 10, so.
I think Mr. Shepard has done an excellent job here.
Yeah, absolutely. A handsome sign, too, I should say. Good. And it's well within the height restrictions, too. Good, yeah. So I have no issues with this.
Okay. Do you have a motion?
Well, we got to go through the criteria.
Criteria, yes,
You'd like that.
correct. All right, I can do this one. Okay, so, the proposed use will be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the bylaw. The proposed signage promotes allowed uses on the site. Second, the proposed use complies with the purposes and standards of the relevant specific sections of the bylaw. The signage complies with the parameters specified in section 5B, namely the proposed signage meets all setback area and height limitations as we just discussed, and incorporate,
Well,
and.
we should
yes.
strike that.
Period.
Period.
Right.
And has no illumination. Third, the specific site is an appropriate location for such use, structure, or condition compatible with the characteristics of the surrounding area. The proposed sign is located in Business District B and promotes permitted businesses on the property, and it will improve the appearance of the existing structure in a manner consistent, or existing property in a manner consistent with others in the area. Fourth, the use as developed and operated will create positive impacts or potential adverse impacts will be mitigated. There will be no adverse impacts. In fact, the sign is smaller anyway than the one that's there. And there will be no nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians. The sign is designed to promote and allow the safe and efficient identification of the property by customers traveling in cars at higher traffic speeds, and there's no reflective nature of the sign, as we just discussed. Sixth, adequate and appropriate facilities exist or will be provided for the proper operation of the proposed use. The proposed sign will be adequately supported and/or affixed. And finally, the proposal meets accepted design standards and criteria for the functional design of facilities, structures, stormwater management, and site construction. It's a sign. It's smaller than the sign that's there.
I'd say that was not applicable.
Yeah.
And it's not lit.
So I move that we grant the special permit as requested, subject to the condition that this proceed in accordance with the plans and representations submitted to this board.
Do you have a second?
I would second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Great,
you.
thanks.
Thank you.
See what happens when I'm in charge?
Wow.
Good to see you, Bob.
Nice seeing you.
So there are, but Robin, you may have been the only one at that meeting. So 10:25, I think you
Really?
just acted on a withdrawal request, so they're really short meeting minutes.
10:25, October 25th.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, right here. Yeah, those are the shortest minutes you'll.
Yeah, I was looking at this. That's, wow.
Oh, I can do that right now.
Is that the minutes?
The other item that we wanted to chat about is the April schedule. Your regular April meeting falls in the middle of school vacation week, as this month's would have had we not rescheduled, so we wanted to see whether you were interested in bumping it up a week.
Okay. So,
To do it which week?
do I need to sign this?
You would just make a motion to approve and.
Oh,
We need to wait for
okay,
Joe to
yep,
come back.
yep.
Yeah. So calendar-wise, what does that mean?
What did you say it was supposed to be?
So it would be April 17th,
Next day.
Yes.
is it?
Yeah, it is.
Oh. So we could bump it back to the 10th.
Is that week problematic for you?
I probably could do it.
On the 10th, you mean?
On the 17th, it's more a courtesy to the public. So if there are hearings that people are interested in attending,
I would rather move it to the next week if we could, as opposed to having.
that may be town meeting.
Oh.
Right? So it would definitely be the Monday. It might bump to the Tuesday.
Okay.
So the week of the 10th is tricky for you?
So is the reason for the 17th is,
School vacation week.
oh, so that's the whole, okay.
Yeah.
Well. I'm gonna be away the first week of April, so I just
You're gonna be catching up the
know
next.
that, yeah, it's just, that's just gonna be a busier time.
Would it be better if we pushed it from a Tuesday to a Thursday?
Like to the
The
12th.
12th?
I think I could do that. Oh, Thursday's on. Well, yeah, that'd be, either it doesn't really matter under that, so if it has to be that week, yeah, it doesn't matter. The school vacation week is okay for me, but if we wanna move it.
We'll look to bump it back. It may be that we can qualify an associate to sit in your place if it turns out that we'll just have to be aware of it as we're continuing other
Okay,
items.
yeah, exactly, yeah, it may be fine, I just,
Okay.
that, I know that I'm gonna be.
Yeah, straight out. Okay.
So where are the minutes that we want to approve?
Oh, yes, so,
So, I move that we approve the minutes for the meeting of October 25th, 2017.
Guess I can second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anything else?
That's it.
I move we adjourn.
I'd second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Someone left their glasses. I don't know if that was,
They might have been here.
Oh.
I feel like I saw them when we popped
we're
out.
adjourned.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great.